Hi there. I wanted to share a really amazing insight that I gained, and I'm just in awe of what I've been shown or what I've realized that I wanted to share with you. And it starts with a video that I saw that kind of like helped me start to crystallize all the components. I'll include a link to it, and it was basically an animated story about Shiva and Shakti, who are god and goddess, like within Indian mythology. Um, and essentially, what they talked about was they said consciousness wanted to understand more about itself, like wanted to experience itself. So it split itself into two, mitosis. And you could think of it as like mind and matter, energy and vibration, Shiva and Shakti. And so split. And then so creation, there was creation. And Shakti, the woman, she went into creation. She became a human. She separated from Shiva, consciousness. And he was just he was in also in human form, but he was meditating and he was connected to consciousness. She so she was growing up, she lost her memory, as all of us have, but she kept having these dreams of this person she kept seeing in the mountains meditating, and she just like felt this longing but didn't really know what it was about. So when she grew up, she ended up in the mountain, series of synchronicity. She ended up in the mountain and she saw this Shiva meditating, and suddenly all her memory came back to her. She suddenly remembered how they were one and they were separated, and that she moved into human form, and that this was like meant for her to reunite with him. And the whole time that they were separated, the world started going to more darkness. It was a separation of like self from greater self. And so essentially there was increasing darkness happening in the world. Anyway, she realized the whole story, but she said, you know what, when he wakes up, I want him to see my true self, not my human self. So she started meditating and like self-actualizing, self-realizing. And when she attained enlightenment, she attained enlightenment, found her true self. It awoke him. And essentially then they came together and they remembered everything, and it was like harmony restored to the universe. And what I realized was that this dynamic is happening for me, on an individual level in my own life journey with my husband in terms of our relationship and in the collective. And here's how I saw it. It's like, so individually, I've always had more, like we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. And I've had more masculine dominant energy, actually. I'm more of a doer, like getting things done, results oriented, really action, oriented. I'm a type 3 in the Enneagram, all about accomplishment, reward, recognition. Extrinsic metrics and motivators was a lot of my journey. And what started happening for me is I started tuning into you could say I was more left-brained, which is all about extrinsic, external metrics, feeling separate from everyone else and having to prove myself, right? Like left brain, analytical. It's got, that type of thing. So I was more left brain dominant, you could argue. Well, what started happening, my journey, as I've shared it, in a couple of previous videos, is that I started tuning into emotion and sensation through my kids, which is connected to the right side of the body, which is connected to the right side of the brain. And then I started seeing patterns and being able to heal my trauma and clear the instrument and start to discover all these things, love and connection and resilience and productivity and et cetera, et cetera. All the things I chased my whole life, I attained by tuning in. And so essentially what I started realizing was coherence, for example, is when the heart and the mind and the body, or the heart and the mind, are connected. They're coherent. So essentially it's like you want the heart leading the way because it's connected to vast intelligence and consciousness and spirit and so on. And then you want to leverage the mind and the ego to help make things happen. But you want it not sequence. If you have, you're dominating with the left brain and you're leading with your mind and your ego, it's suboptimal because this is a much slower processor and it's always extrinsically like motivated and it's always separate. It's about, competition and survival. Whereas like if you're able to like heal the trauma and clear the instrument, you get access to a vastly intelligent, high processing power processor that can help you, as I've shown in previous videos, all kinds of stuff, even including business metrics like decision making and P&L. Anyway, so this was my individual journey of like discovery. It was like, and what I was told by a spiritual mentor was that my journey in this life was, unity consciousness. So divine masculine, divine feminine within, like mind and matter, like heart and mind, body and mind, and so on. Kind of unifying for this like great unification. And then what I also realized was my husband, who's my polar opposite now, he essentially like is very, I would say, very left brain dominant. And so he's motivated by like like what's measurable, what's objective, like very analytical, really bright, but very much focused on, so it doesn't agree with all these things that I'm experiencing and seeing. And what I've realized that on a collective basis, like, why are women suppressed in so many cultures? I was like trying to think about that. Like, they didn't all just talk to each other. Like there's something that happened there that was like inherent. What I realized was we go through these various epochs, so cycles of like human evolution over, and they're, I think, hundreds and thousands of years. And right now we've been going through an epoch where the feminine within each of us is suppressed. And so when that happens, like, everyone's suppressing the feminine. So even the men are suppressing the feminine within themselves. And because they've done that, they then don't value or respect the feminine outside themselves. So Mother Earth and other women. So, and that's what I think is going on. And so now they're saying that divine feminine is rising. Mother Earth is starting to rise. You're seeing more global, like, climate issues. You're starting to see more like social change happening in terms of communities. So divine feminine is rising. And they say that when the energy is rising, all the lower energies, trauma, darkness, and shadow and stuff, is coming to the surface. So we're seeing mass triggers happening by various forces that's bringing it to the surface. And now it's a choice. Can you transmute it and release it? Or, do you end up further traumatizing and growing the trauma and the shadow within? So essentially, at a collective level, what's happening is it's like there's going to also be the same dynamic. And I saw a video recently that was talking about twin flames and how none of the twin flames. The twin flame is basically when you're on a spiritual path. It's like you can be a polar opposite, but someone who's like on the journey with you and is gonna help you unify, like this, achieve unity consciousness between the two of you. And apparently none of the twin flames have united because it's a fractal. So it's like happening at and what's also happening on the planet is there's a mitosis that has occurred. So there's a split, 3D and 5D. So, the folks that tend to be more, left brain, analytical, haven't experienced unity consciousness, haven't, experienced like connection to other so deeply, like still feels the separation, still looking at, and that world's going to become increasingly chaotic. So this year, what I heard from a lot of astrologers is that 7 of the outer planets are changing signs. And usually whenever any of the outer planets change signs, which is pretty rare, there's planetary shifts that happen. Well, 7 of them are happening. And as I experienced in the last Vipassana journey that I'll share with you, 7 of my chakras started getting aligned on January 20th, transition of power in the United States. So it was lots of forces that are starting to move on the planet. But essentially, it's going to become more chaotic, and that mitosis is going to become more clear. And there's a prophecy that in 2027, by a number of folks, astrologers and spiritual leaders and so on, that 2027 is going to be when one of the gene keys, gene key 55, Richard Rudd talks about this, one of the 64 codons of the DNA matrix is going to activate across humanity. And apparently the new human, it's going to be like a metamorphosis, like a dragonfly or a butterfly, where the new human is going to emerge. So a lot of folks are getting pulled over or falling further into darkness. Some of them are going to get drawn to, they're going to seek the light when they fall into darkness. Like I fell into darkness before I started seeking the light, finding self and going down this path of self-discovery. So there are going to be others that happens to. Some are already being drawn over to start building the new world. So it's going to be this 5D is going to be the new world that starts to more explicitly emerge in 2027. It's already happening. This mitosis will become more clear. And then more people are going to start moving this way. And then there are going to be some that just stay in the 3D world, and there's going to be 2 species of human. So essentially, we're in for one hell of a ride. I hope you're going to enjoy it. Thanks.